In this example, we have a polynomial over another polynomial. Remember that the fraction bar means to divide. And we've got to use long division for this one because the denominator, what we're dividing by, is not in the form x minus c. It actually has an x squared. Notice also that I have filled in a 0x to the third because the numerator has an x to the fourth and an x squared, so it's missing that x to the third term. Oops, sorry. So that's why I put in the 0x to the third to act as a placeholder just to keep everything lined up. And I'll show you what I mean as I'm dividing. So remember, when you're dividing, what you should focus on first is this first term here and this first term here. And you're asking yourself, what times x squared will give me x to the fourth? Another way to think about it is you're dividing x to the fourth by x squared, and that gives you x squared. So that's what we'll put on top. And it really doesn't matter where you put the x squared because we're not using decimals, so it doesn't matter where you place it. So now remember the next step is to multiply. So you're going to take what you put on top and you're going to multiply it by the entire polynomial outside. So we'll use the distributive property. X squared times x squared gives you x to the fourth. X squared times 4x gives you plus 4x to the third. And then x squared times negative 1 gives you negative x squared. So this is what I was talking about. Notice that if I did not have this 0x to the third in here, then the 4x to the third would be under 17x squared, and I would probably be tempted to add those terms together. Likewise for the 4x and the minus x squared. So it's just a placeholder to help keep everything lined up so that we're adding like terms. All right, the next step when you divide is to subtract. And remember, the way to do that is to change all the signs. So x to the fourth becomes negative x to the fourth. Plus 4x cubed, well, that becomes a negative 4x cubed. And the minus x squared becomes a positive. So remember that subtracting is the same as changing all the signs. And I tend to go through and change all the signs because if not, the mistake I see made is that you subtract this, but then you forget to change these signs and your answers end up being incorrect. So now we're going to go ahead and do the math. X to the fourth minus x to the fourth cancels out. And if that doesn't happen, you need to go back to the drawing board because that's how we got this number here, was we divided to get this number there. 0x to the third minus 4x to the third gives you negative 4x to the third. Negative 17x squared plus x squared is going to give you negative 16x squared because remember there's a 1, so negative 17 plus 1 is negative 16x squared. And I'm sorry, this should be x to the third. Now I'm going to bring down my 4x, and it is a positive 4x. Now I'm going to start that algorithm all again. So remember, you're looking at the first term here, and then the first term here. And you're asking yourself, what can I multiply by x squared to give me negative 4x to the third? So that would be a negative 4x. Remember, another way to think about this is as negative 4x to the third divided by x squared. So negative 4 divided by 1 is negative 4. X to the third divided by x squared. Remember, we subtract those exponents. And 3 minus 2 would give you negative 4x to the first. All right, now it's time to multiply. So I have negative 4x times x squared plus 4x minus 1. So that's going to give me negative 4x to the third. So I'm multiplying the first term. And then negative 4x times positive 4x is going to give me negative 16x squared. And then negative 4x times negative 1 is going to give me positive 4x. So then I'm going to change all the signs to subtract. So this becomes positive, this becomes positive, and this becomes negative. These actually cancels out, which they should, but these cancel out as well, and those cancel out as well. So I'm left with 0, and now I'm going to bring down the negative 2. And there's nothing that you can multiply x squared by to give you this negative or this 0, unless we put 0 up there, which would just be nonsense. So 0 minus 2 gives us negative 2, and this becomes the remainder. So remember, there's a couple different ways we can write our answer. One way is to write it with the remainder. So this would be your quotient. And then negative 2 is your remainder. Another way is to write it with the remainder over your divisor. And so that would be x squared minus 4x minus 2 over x squared plus 4x minus 1. And you just need to pay attention in ALEKS because they may ask for it in this form or in this form. Another thing you could also do that would be the same is change this to a plus, but then that negative would have to carry to the numerator of that fraction.